The frequency we vibrate is something that sometimes people feel they're in alignment. Most of the time they don't. What we're going to be doing is creating the words that can articulate that level of vibration.
Welcome to Get Unstuck and On Target, the weekly podcast that offers senior leaders insights and strategies to not only lead with confidence and vision, but also to achieve groundbreaking results. I'm your host, Mike O'Neill. I coach top-level executives on the power of ethical leadership to forge teams to be as united as they are effective. In each episode, join me for insightful conversations with leaders just like you, providing practical advice to help you get unstuck and propel you and your company forward. Let's get started. This conversation with Mitchell Levy, it lit a fire under me. Mitchell is a global credibility expert who's guided over 500 thought leaders in crystallizing their purpose through a powerful framework called the CPOP, Customer Point of Possibility. And in this episode, I wasn't just the host, I was the client. I got to experience his process firsthand. And let me tell you, it was energizing. Mitchell has a gift for cutting through the noise and helping you land on what truly matters. As an executive coach, I'm always helping leaders sharpen their message and lead with clarity, but this time, I got the clarity. So if you're serious about influence, leadership, or legacy, you'll want to hear this one. Today, we're doing something I've never done before on this podcast. For 200 plus episodes, I've been the one asking the questions, but today, we're flipping the script. In this episode, what we're calling Clarity Live, I've invited someone that I've never worked with before to coach me live and unscripted. No prep, no pre-interview, just a real conversation designed to help uncover clarity where I might feel stuck. And the person guiding that conversation is someone who knows a thing or two about clarity. My guest today is Mitchell Levy, a global credibility expert, executive coach, and a two-time TedX speaker. He has authored over 60 books, built more than 20 businesses in Silicon Valley, and he serves as a coach with Marshall Goldsmith's prestigious 100 Coaches group. Mitchell helps leaders like me, like you, see themselves more clearly, communicate more credibly, and lead more effectively. Welcome, Mitchell.
Mike, you really built me up really big. I'm hoping to live up to that intro. Thank you.
Let me go ahead and cue this up a little bit more so the listeners know what to expect. Regular listeners know that I do tend to value preparation, but I also believe that sometimes the best growth happens when we set the notes aside and get real. So today I'm going to step out of my comfort zone, not because the topic's going to be too personal, but because I'm handing the reins over to someone else. Mitchell's going to walk me through the same clarity process that he uses with his clients. Let's see where this takes us. And Mitchell, I'm ready.
Well, I'm honored and proud of you to actually do this live. So thank you. And what I want to be able to do is let me set a little bit of education for those who are watching or listening. What I do, and I've been told I am one of, if not the best in the world at doing this, is I help any company or any individual articulate where they are executing on their purpose in less than 10 words. As humans, we could mention this for companies as well, but it's easy to understand that as humans. As humans, we vibrate at a frequency. The frequency we vibrate is something that sometimes people feel they're in alignment. Most of the time they don't. What we're going to be doing is creating the words that can articulate that level of vibration. That's the good news. That's the easy news. The harder part is once you understand that level of vibration, once you can put it in words, can you hold on to it? And what I've found, and I've done this now over 1,000 times, that 90% of the people, even when they get those words, even when they feel good while we're talking, even when they understand that this is really them, that they'll let the chaos of the world around them take them out of alignment. That's where executive coaches come in. So the word that I use, it's really an acronym. It's called a CPOP. And what happens is, it's, by the way, CPOP stands for Customer Point of Possibilities. Okay. So I want to do one more thing. By the way, I've never had this conversation either. So the CPOP is a formula, right? So just like E equals MC squared, it's a formula. However, in business, we don't have the type of formulas that we have like E equals MC squared because we're dealing with humans, right? So it's different. So what's happening is I will execute a formula with you. We'll come up with your CPOP. For you to actually be able to live and execute and deliver on a day-to-day basis in the framework, in sort of the container, or better yet, the playground of this now new framework, you need to actually deliver and play in a framework. The framework is how, if, for instance, if I am a client of yours, you need to coach me to say, "Hey, Mitchell, this is your playground. Why do you make sure you play in the playground?" So, what's interesting to me is many coaches today are doing what I affectionately call C-popping. They help their clients get from A to B. With a C-pop to start, it will allow the clients to get from A prime to B prime. And that's where it's slightly different. All right. So, you ready?
I am, and I'm looking forward to this.
All right. So, we're going to start with the formula of the C. And by the way, this is a secret formula that I'm happy to share with you. The reason I'm happy to share is that we are so full, as humans, we're so full of what I call marketing cookie cutter approaches, that when I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility, and I would send them a 16-minute video ahead of time with the formula, and I would say to them, because I found after the first 50 that 98% did not come up with their CPOP,
Mhm.
I'd send them the 16-minute video and I'd say, "Listen, I want you to be in the 2%." And even after they watched the 16-minute video, and I encouraged them, I was gamifying it, I encouraged them to be part of the 2%, they would still come back and the statistics still held. So I've just sort of thrown away marketing cookie cutter and focus on the formula. Formula's two pieces. Okay. Who? So who do you serve? One, two, or three words. And the second piece is from their perspective. What is the pain point they're experiencing that they want to get over? Typically, about 80% of the time, the CPOP's pain point. Or what's the pleasure point that they want to get over? All right. So, Mike, we're ready.
Okay.
Deep breath. All right. So, who do you serve? One, two, or three words ish, or feel free just to talk, and I'll pull out those words for you. But who do you serve?
In one word, leaders, but more typically, senior leaders of growing small to mid-sized businesses.
What type of size does that mean?
Well, the way I'm defining that, I come out of an HR background, so I'm looking at kind of head count. Typically, somewhere in the 50 to 250 range. And I've had clients much larger. I've had clients smaller, but given a choice, I like working with that size organization for a variety of reasons.
Huh. What are some other, I like that, senior leaders of mid-sized businesses, although that's by itself 5 words. What are some other ways we could express that people still understand what that means?
So I'll be more specific, not just any business. If given a choice, I would love to work with and choose to work with growing small to mid-sized businesses.
Mm,
So if I'm hearing where you're going with that, leaders, typically senior leaders, but leaders of growing small to mid-sized businesses.
got it. We'll come back and play with that.
Okay.
The Yeah, we'll come back to play with that. Thank you. All right. So we're going to ask 2 questions here. What is their pain point? What are they experiencing?
Well, probably the biggest thing is growing businesses are experiencing growing pains, and growing pains come in a lot of different ways. What I see most often is growing pains come in the form of they're losing employees that they don't want to lose.
Mm. What's that mean? Why is that bad?
because they've invested in these employees and they're leaving. And more often than not, they're leaving because of poor leadership.
And does that make them typically, do they tighten the hatches or open up? What do they do as a result of that?
As a result of the employees leaving or my work with them.
Yeah, we're 100% focused on their perspective. So before someone like you come on board, what do they end up trying to do things to hold the leaders in, or which probably causes more leaders to leave? I mean, more employees to leave. What happens there?
Or what I see is they're frustrated because they can't figure out why. They don't think they're doing anything differently, but now people are leaving. And what's really troubling is people that they really want to keep are leaving. And therefore, they begin to feel as if they failed in some form or fashion. But turnover costs the company a lot of money. And so when they talk to accounting, they realize, daggum, you're losing good people. Do you realize how much that's costing you? And they begin to say, losing employees is costing me money. Let's figure out a way to stop losing them that's fast.
Hmm. Is that the primary pain point that you're experiencing, that you see when you talk to your clients? Is that 80%, we'll say, of the clients that end up coming your way?
Well, I would say it might be different between my training clients and my coaching clients. The training clients oftentimes apply kind of more of a business rationale for doing training. And there's a feeling of, you know what, we should have been doing this all along. So it's a little bit of a guilt that this speaks to.
Mm.
So, from a feeling standpoint, let me address the guilt. From a feeling standpoint, is if our supervisors manage better, then maybe we won't be losing people as fast as we have been, and we can keep the money on the bottom line. But the feeling is more of, gosh, we should have done this a long time ago. And there's a sense of relief when they begin to do so because they realize how practical the solution is.
In terms of your business, what percentage is training versus coaching?
It's evolving. It probably is more 60% training, 40% coaching. That ratio as a business will probably stay about constant.
Okay.
We also consult, but for me personally, I am finding myself being asked, and I'm very much enjoying the coaching piece, the executive coaching piece.
Got it.
So I envision myself as a percentage almost flipping that 60% coaching, 40% training.
Hmm. Got it. Okay. What would be a pleasure point if they work with you as a coach? What would be the plus side? What do they get out of it?
So I answer it from as a coach. Is I'm working with a coaching client. What do they get out of it? They gain clarity. I love that expression, but they gain clarity of how important what they do is to the success of the organization. They become more aware that when they're in key leadership roles, what they do well or poorly has a ripple effect. And what they begin to see is that that which excited them to begin with, they lost sight of that. So I try to help them regain a sense of why they started the business to begin with. So it takes initially more of a kind of a strategic bent. Are we heading in the right direction? Do I have the right people in place to help us get there? And are we hitting the numbers we need to hit to continue growing? And are we therefore attracting the right people by which people feel a sense of connection, a sense of belonging that it, for all practical purposes, for small companies in particular, that sense of family is very, very important.
Okay. You know, it's possible, depending on uh, who I'm talking with and how I work with others, that I could spend more time and we could poke and dive a little bit longer so I can feel the energy of what's important to you, of who you are and where you're vibrating. Um, that said, I got smacked in the head with 6 words. Um, and and I think what what really brings this home because the and I'm gonna put it in chat before I share it, but I wanted to share one more thing. So what happens with the CPOP is we're not used to knowing this. Most of the time when we're taught to memorize a 30-second elevator pitch. I'm gonna encourage everyone to throw that out.
Okay.
Here's why. Well, let me ask, if you're sharing your elevator pitch, even if you're really good at sharing it, does it come from your head or does it come from your heart?
It comes from the head and it's plastic.
Exactly. Now, credibility, which came out of the research, is the quality which you're trusted, known, and liked. If you're sharing a 30-second elevator pitch from your head, it's hard for people to get to know you and like you because you're just sharing memorized stuff. So what's unique about the CPOP, it is in less than 10 words, in your case, 6. It's 6 words that describe the playground you play. Now, when you're talking in the future, starting this weekend, maybe next week, when somebody says, "Who are you? What do you do?" or when you talk to people, what you wanna do is share your CPOP, except people don't know what it means. You can't say, "My CPOP is" yet. Maybe 50, 100,000 people know it. Not enough, right? So what you wanna do is present a hook, and we'll share if you don't mind, I'll share mine. My CPOP's 9 words long. And so what I would often do is if I'm standing in a group of people, they don't know anything about me, they might, everyone stands up and they get, their 30 seconds. The hook I'm going to do is say, there's a client base that I love working with and gets a lot of value from me. Pause. That's the hook.
Mhm.
Then I'm going to share my 9 words. Inc. 5,000 CEOs leading the future with executive abundance.
Mm.
Now, you drop the mic after that. And then what happens if you're talking one-on-one with somebody, I will tell you when they're going to say, tell me more. If you're talking in front of a group, you might, wait a second or two and go, "Hey, let me tell you a little bit more." And so what I'll do with you, Mike, is I'll share your CPOP and then I'll do the tell me more because that's when the full impact of the playground you play in makes sense. But for me, I think 5,000 CEOs leading the future with executive abundance, the most natural question, by the way, let me tell you where the question comes from. If I'm speaking to a person, they're one of 3 people. They're either a referral partner.
Yep.
That's who you are to me, and I am to you. They're either a prospect
Mhm.
or they don't care. It
Yep.
doesn't mean they don't care about you. It just means they don't care about the playground you play in. So with my CPOP, the most natural tell me more. What's executive abundance? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, listen, most CEOs of fast growing companies. And I sat on the board of a NASDAQ firm. They focus on one stakeholder group. They focus on investors. And they're doing that at the expense of 4 other stakeholder groups. One is their family and self.
Mhm.
They're also doing it at the expense of what you care about, employees, customers, and the community at large. Imagine being able to bring abundance to all 5 groups, not just one.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Right. So that was about 40 seconds. But because I put a container around the playground I play in, it became really easy for you to give me incremental credibility. You ready for yours?
I am.
All right. So, by the way, we could play around a little bit with the words and you could let it sit with it, but I'm going to put it in chat because I'm a visual guy and then I'll share it. To me, what I heard you say mid market executives frustrated with employee loss.
I think that does work. I know I keyed in on what is oftentimes my go-to because you can quantify that. But that's accurate. It may not describe what might lead them to reach out to me as a coach, but it most definitely would be something that would trigger them wanting to know more about how to train their supervisors that would improve that. Does that comment make sense?
Absolutely. So we might want to change it. On the other hand, everything you said focused on this, and I like having numbers. And I like having you're definitely because you came from HR. So let me do your tell me more for you. Would you mind?
Sure.
Right. So once again, you're talking to somebody and you go, there's a group of executives that I really add value to. Mid-market executives frustrated with employee loss. Let me tell you what that means. They're running their businesses. They're doing the best they can. The company's growing. And at the same time, the people who were vital to them, the employees that are vital to them, they're leaving. They have no idea why. They have no idea what's going on. What they really haven't done is created the environment, created the culture, created the processes, created the systems that will allow the company to continue to grow and continue to flourish. That's what I do. That
Well said. I'm glad we're recording this.
well, so I'm so glad you said that. Don't memorize what I said
Right.
because you don't need to memorize it. What happens is that tell me more is going to be personally delivered to the person or the audience you're interacting with. So maybe it's something specifically different that you, in a pre conversation, you've heard or overheard. But what I want you to consider is that you personally in life wanted to create environments for people that they understood the rules and the processes and they actually flourished. You want to do that not just in your business, but in life overall. And that this is a playground you play in. And in playing this playground, you bring this to other organizations, to other people. The legacy that you're helping your clients leave, the legacy to me is what people say about you when you're not in a room.
Mhm.
And every evening at dinner, every employee of the boss is talking about them sometime during the dinner conversation. So what you're doing is you're helping to improve the legacy of every client you work with because you're allowing those conversations to be on the positive side versus the negative.
I hope I'm not about to throw you a curveball, but let me ask the question maybe a little bit differently. What I have found, first line supervisors, they get promoted, they're thrown out there, they are not told what to do, and they fake it until they make it. That doesn't stop, in my observations, as you climb the corporate ladder. Just because they're in the C suite doesn't mean they've got all the answers. So I am seeing in my coaching work that same degree of insecurity, but they can't let it show. So
I
they think they cannot let it show.
exactly.
Okay.
So, by the way, there's no curveballs. Because the conversation just is. You got me thinking about something which I will for those that are just podcasting, take a look on what came out of the credibility research. I'm going to share the 10 values that come out that are part of credibility. Credibility is the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. And what's interesting is in order to be trusted, one of the most important things that you need to be is coachable. You were a little reluctant. I'm going to do this live, but you were so coachable. I mean, that's who you are. You're authentic. I'm feeling it. You're vulnerable. I mean, this is the trust part is the easy part. And one of the things you'll notice is the fourth element or the fourth value of being trustworthy is integrity.
Yep.
And the interesting part, so that's step one. If you have a client that is not coachable, you may not actually want to have that client. I say no, by the way, to clients that are not coachable. I want clients that are vulnerable, and all you have to do is paint a new framework of why that's important to them. I'll share since I'm sharing this. I'll just say um, there are two lessons, or God, so many lessons here. One is how you can be likable. We could always come back to that, but the summary is sharing somebody else's ideas, thoughts, and actions. I call it spreading cred dust and being respectful. right? That's you want to be likable. All you have to do, and by the way, you're spreading my credit dust by having me on your show. So thank you. The thing I wanted to mention is if you notice that the word or value integrity is twice, it's the
I did
only
notice that.
one that's twice. So I wanted to put words around something really interesting. I wanted to put words around, when you talk to somebody and you're getting and by the way, you said something that fake it till you make it, one of the most stupidest things I ever heard. Please don't ever do that. Do not fake it till you make it. Do not practice fake it till you make it. It shows that you're inauthentic. It is almost the worst thing that anyone can do. But I don't have a strong opinion about that. No, obviously. Um, What's interesting is sometimes you're talking to somebody and you get the spidey sense, the hair in the back of your neck, there's something wrong, there's something wrong. I want to put words around that.
Okay.
The words have to do with integrity. On a being trustworthy, on the trustworthy side, their external integrity, they're saying the following. And as you get to know them, so being known is not that I know of you, it's that I get to know you.
Mm.
So the internal integrity, who they really are, there's a disconnect. When there's incongruous energy between external and internal energy integrity, that's when your spidey senses start coming up.
Yes.
That's why fake it till you make it is just so, so wrong.
And for those who are listening, not watching, the graphic that was just thrown up on the screen, we're going to include that in the show notes. So I'll just mention that to our
Awesome.
listeners. Cool.
Thank you. So mid-market executives, you could say execs, mid-market execs frustrated with employee loss. How's that feel to you?
It feels okay. It does feel. I go back to what I mentioned. I like it because it's real. Frustrated is real. Mid market people understand kind of what we're doing. Use the words of executives; those are the decision makers. But frustrated with employee loss, it's a universal problem. No matter the industry, no matter the size of the organization. So that does work.
Can I tell you why it sounds to me that you're uncomfortable with it? And that's okay. Um, it sounds to me you're the type of guy that would rather have a positive CPOP versus a negative CPOP. And that's a negative CPOP.
Well, I tell you what, the answer to your question is it's okay if they're frustrated with employee loss because that is a indication of weak leadership.
It is, but many, many of the audience that are coachable have not put that two and two together yet.
Okay. I don't have a problem with using the negative.
We could also come up with a positive CPOP. We'll probably do that afterwards. I use on CEOs because they have such a huge ego. I use a positive CPOP
Okay.
because they'll never admit to being a negative.
Fair.
Um, in your case, the reason why I liked the negative is when somebody on the executive team goes to HR and says, "Oh, God, we have all this employee loss. We got to fix that." That's why I'm thinking it's a really good fit for you because that's what one of the things I've learned recently that I really use often is sell them what they want and then deliver what they need.
Yes.
And so you're going to hear the HR person who wants to bring you in as a referral source or, hey, let's talk to these execs. The executive's going to say that. There'll be many other things they say, but employee loss will be one of them. And it's so easy to show the numbers of what the benefit is of an employee retention, employee engagement. There's so much value in being able to move in that direction.
In your opinion, would this CPOP work equally well if coaching is in order?
Oh, I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it's both. I think if you're talking to a potential coaching client, you're telling me more. It could be, hey, listen, there are how many people have you worked with? How many sort of coaching and trainings have you done?
Hundreds.
I've worked with hundreds of people, and there's one thing that a lot of times they hear, but they may pay lip service or they may not pay attention to it. And that is who you are and how you show up and how you are as an executive is going to ripple down and affect every employee. And it's really possible that many of the people that leave in your company are leaving because either directly because of you, I talk that way, by the way, or somebody in your organization is not leading in a good enough way, and the person underneath is feeling uncomfortable. These are things that are
Works one.
very simply fixed.
Okay.
These are things that you and I are going to work on, not just bringing to yourself, but bringing to those people who work for you. Something like that would be your tell me more. That might be a little bit on the longer side, but that would be how you would do it for a coaching engagement.
I know one of our goals here was to demonstrate kind of live how you do what you do, and I know we're somewhat constrained time wise. But in terms of what we've just done thus far, have we captured the essence of kind of what you do and plant the seed of how do you take this and go work on it and flesh it out?
So Mike, I what I often tell people is someone who's a little bit more HR, a little bit more engineering like, you're going to need to reflect on this, right? So what I tell them is go to sleep thinking about it. When you wake up in the morning and you go, "What's my CPOP?" and this pops in your mind, it's yours.
It's yours. Got it.
What's next then is, and now when I talk to, I mentioned this earlier, I've shared this now and done this exercise over 1,000 times, and 90% of the time people lose it.
Mm.
Right? They go back to chaos and they don't pay attention to it. The 10%, as I share the CPOP, I could see their eyes starting to roll immediately because they go to their cells and go, "Oh my God, my LinkedIn profile, my website, my social media, I got to change everything."
Mm.
Sometimes it's just subtle changes, but if you now use this CPOP as your compass, what'll happen is it will help you make significantly better decisions. And if you're making decisions that are in alignment with your compass, when you have the opportunity to take action, your behaviors will be aligned with your compass. As you're making decisions to demonstrate a behavior that's aligned with your compass, guess what? You're coming across more credible. And what ultimately happens when you reflect your CPOP online and you reflect it when you're in person, you now have turned your CPOP into a magnet. And that's when people start coming your way.
Mitchell, as you're reflecting on our time together, and you would want to somehow kind of say, well, this is what the takeaway I would make sure I want that our viewers and listeners have. What might that be?
We're not talking about what is your purpose, because that's this really big amorphous thing. I truly think, and this came out of the research, 90% of humans are born, live, and die without ever knowing their purpose.
Hmm.
What I'd like you to think about, it is very simple, not easy, to be able to articulate where you're executing on your purpose today. And if you do that and you grab an accountability partner that helps you stay aligned with your purpose, you're going to wake up every day, and instead of saying, "I have to do ABC to be happy," you're playing in your playground. You're going to wake up every day and everything you do is going to make you happy. It will change how you show up in the world, and it will change how you show up with those around you.
As I'm reflecting on what you just said as a takeaway, I don't mind sharing. I was very good in my corporate HR leadership role. I was able to assemble a great team. We just did a lot. But in terms of really fulfilling my purpose, that has come later. It's come later after starting a business and trying different things. I don't mind sharing of the things that I get to do, the things that has really resonated from a purpose standpoint is that of a coach. Because when you showed that graphic, I could see that these things are so critically important. And when I can just be who I am and work who I like to work with and paid well to do that, I have nothing to complain about. And that's something I have really, really enjoyed. Mitchell, I've enjoyed this conversation. So let me offer as we kind of start wrapping up our time together. This is for our audience. If something's been nagging at you, an idea that you haven't clarified, a role that you haven't fully stepped into, a challenge that you keep circling, it might be time to name it. You don't have to figure it out alone. Talk to someone like Mitchell. Reflect. Get curious, because clarity isn't a luxury. It's how leaders move forward. Mitchell, you're willing to go someplace that you've done 1,000 times. I now have done one time. I appreciate your willingness to do so with me. I know that there'll be folks listening and watching who want to kind of learn more about you and how you help clients and alike. You are a prolific writer and alike, but what's the best way for them to reach out and kind of learn more about you and what you do if they want to get more clarity?
I would say go to my website. So
Okay.
it's mitchelllevy.com, mitchellllevy.com. There you could see what some of the programs are I'm working on today. There's something you like, please join in. If you want to book time on a calendar, you could do that as well, or connect to me on social. All of that can be looked at and gathered from mitchelllevy.com.
Excellent. We will also include that contact information in the show notes. Mitchell, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for doing something different. I loved it.
Well, I also want to thank our subscribers, and that is you had an option. You stuck with us, and I trust that if you did, you can see the value that Mitchell has brought to this conversation. I hope that this conversation has helped you gain clarity and perhaps spark some new perspectives that would help you get unstuck and on target. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Get Unstuck and On Target. I hope you've gained insights to help you lead with confidence and drive your organization forward. Remember, at Bench Builders, we're committed to your success, your leadership excellence, and your strategic growth. If you've enjoyed our conversation today, please leave a review, rate, and subscribe to keep up with our latest episodes. This show really grows when listeners like you share it with others. Who do you know who needs to hear what we talked about today? Until next time, I encourage you to stay focused on the target and continue to break new ground on your leadership path.
This show is powered by Media Leads. To get your next great podcast produced, go to MediaLeadsCo.com.